Hey Buzz, this is Doug Kenney talking.
How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good.
How has life turned out for you so far in 2020?
Well, I don't have the virus, so I guess I'm doing okay.
Yeah, the ongoing virus that's gone around, you say?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you avoided it because I think I caught it last year during the holidays.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So are you up for this quick follow-up chat about
Sure,
your racing?
absolutely, no problem.
Yeah. First of all, I'd tell you that the project that we did last year turned out very well.
Good.
And I really appreciate that you made the time to chat about it.
My
Yeah,
pleasure.
yeah. So yeah, I have another list of questions about your career and all that, and next to the ones that I forgot to ask last year. And my first one is, when did you form Round Three Racing?
Round three was established in 2019.
19. Yeah, that's really cool. Where does it compete?
Last year we did what they called Champ Car. That's an endurance series. Virtually all endurance races, 8, 10, 12, 14, 24-hour events. Um, and we really competed pretty much everywhere east of the Mississippi. Road America, Road Atlanta, Barber, Watkins Glen, on and on. VIR, pretty much all the tracks this side of the Mississippi.
Nice. That's pretty cool. So,
Very cool.
yeah. So, is Champ Car different from the Kart IndyCar series then?
It is. Champ Car used to be called, it had a very unflattering name called Chump Car. And the idea was basically lower cost cars, but again, running in an endurance format. And you get all shapes and sizes. You get good cars, pretty cars, ugly cars, and but yeah, it was renamed Champ Car a couple of years ago, and typically fields anywhere from 70 to 100 plus cars starting some of these endurance races. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
So who runs the team?
Actually, my son and I own the team. Our team manager is a gentleman who lives up in Joliet, Illinois, where the shop is located. Mark Gamora is his name, and Mark is a longtime Porsche guy. And as we're running Porsches, it's a perfect fit.
Pretty cool. That's great to hear. What's your favorite racing movie between Days of Thunder and Talladega Nights?
Well, if those are the only two choices I have, I would suppose Days of Thunder.
Ah, okay. Now that you brought that up, is there like a movie in racing that you like better than those two?
Well, I just saw 2 nights ago Willie T. Ribb's movie Uppity, which was very well done. Really a must watch for anybody. And of course, Ford versus Ferrari was fantastic.
Ah, alrighty. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I've kind of asked that to a variety of people before, and I might need to start extending the list on that one because there's a lot of racing movies,
Well, the new one with Willie T. Uppity is really quite well done.
Yeah, and last year I saw The Art of Racing in the Rain. Did you see that?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Doesn't quite hold a candle to Ford versus Ferrari, or there's another great movie all about the Williams Formula One team, which is very well done. and Adam Carolla's movie about, I think it's The Longest Day. It's all about the Le Mans 24 Hours. That was equally well done.
Nice. That's pretty cool. And when I was in high school a few years back, I had a paraprofessional that told me that basically his children behaved like Ricky Bobby's children in Talladega Nights. And so he undid it by doing the same thing that Ricky Bobby's mother did, you know? Yeah, that was pretty funny to hear that story.
Yeah.
What was the reason that Ron Fellows made his next Cup start for American Equipment at Loudon?
Uh, that's a good question. That was in the last year of Winston Cup, and we were basically had a revolving door with drivers, and Ron had been sort of pigeonholed doing road courses, and wanted to give him a chance to do a let's say a traditional oval track, all it being on a high bank track. And in hindsight, it probably wasn't a very good favor we did for him, because if my memory serves me correct, he crashed about 4 cars, and we actually had to send down to Charlotte and get another car and bring it up. And it was cold, and he wasn't used to tires coming in the way they do, and we probably didn't do him a real favor, but nonetheless, he did it.
Yeah. So you kind of consider that to be a mistake then, or?
Well, it wasn't fair to him. It certainly probably put a sour taste in his mouth for doing oval tracks, and as Loudon, you well know, Loudon is a track that really, really didn't give much margin for error, and it was pretty tough track to have a guy go out and do his first, let's say, non-high banked oval. Places like Charlotte and Daytona, he was well familiar, but a flat track like Loudon, probably need a little bit more time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Didn't Robbie Gordon win a race there in 2001, I believe?
He did.
Yeah. That was, from what I understand, that was one of the biggest upsets of that year, because Robbie was a road course driver.
Yeah. Yep. I remember it well.
And if memory serves me right, he kind of pulled a bump and run on Jeff Gordon, which is part of the sport,
Well, good for him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. What did Ron say after his trying day at Loudon when he finished 36th?
I don't specifically remember, but I know that he was pretty upset with some of the crashes. He crashed real early in the very first session, and it was super cold, and he was going super quick, and just didn't account for the tire pressures and how the car was going to come in. But I don't specifically remember, but I do remember it was a tough day.
Yeah, and probably not one of his fondest memories.
I would say not one of his fondest memories.
Yeah. And what did Ron say on the radio when his car broke at the Glen?
Well, I remember that, other than the fact that I don't know what he said on the radio, but that was a race that certainly was something that could have been a highlight. And I hate to say it, but it was a crew error that in assembling the car, for that race day, that caused that failure, and it was just a real shame. I mean, he was running up front, probably, who knows? I mean, could have crashed the next lap, who knows? But we certainly took away any chance he had of having a great finish by a self-inflicted wound.
Yeah, that's kind of tough. And did he ever return to the race after repairing the car?
I don't believe he did because if I remember right, it sheared off a bunch of the hub bolts, and the car just wasn't able to continue.
Uh,
Um, yeah.
yeah, it's tough. And when did you make the decision to walk away from the Cup Series that year?
Well, I would say that the decision was partly made for me when Caterpillar decided to terminate their sponsorship program early,
Oh,
and we had made some effort to replace them, and I just I wanted to see the year through, and I would say that probably in September that year we'd made a pretty firm commitment that we were going to shut our operation down, and I was able to lease the equipment, lease the shop to another team, and so I would say about September that year we made a pretty firm commitment, and the object was to try to get everybody placed in other locations and other teams, and rather than wait to the end of the season, uh, we were sort of preparing ourselves for the inevitable.
yeah. Yeah, and didn't you say that you sold the shop briefly to the Morgenthaus?
Um, well, at the time, after we got out, after I stopped that year in '98, we leased that shop to Joe Bessie in 1999. I believe that he remained in that shop pretty much all of '99, if my memory serves me right. And then BAM Racing came in, and they rented the shop for a couple of years, both with Shauna Robinson and Kenny Schrader, and there was a Brett, I can't remember his last name, Sherman, I think it was.
Oh,
And then eventually they bought the shop, but I think they rented it for probably at least 3 seasons.
alrighty. Did you ever attend the Daytona 500 at all other than when you were a team owner?
I did, certainly as a spectator, and
When was that?
um, during the Trans Am days, I went as a guest to Chevrolet probably 4 or 5 times, and so that would have been all through the early '90s, and I went to the 400, the Firecracker, the old July 4th race. First time I went there was probably about 1960 or 61, 62, somewhere in
Ooh,
there.
that's way
Uh,
back.
That's way back. That was the 18. Well, it was about the ninth grade, I suppose. So that was the first time I actually went to Daytona. Was probably in the very early '60s.
That's really cool, man. And that was back when Unser was a common name, and that was back when Petty was a name as well, you know?
Yeah, I remember. I remember meeting, of course, Fireball Roberts, and I remember seeing Cuckoo Marlin and Daryl Derringer and that whole crowd. So yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Have you heard over the past year or so that NASCAR has kind of found itself into some match fixing scandals with teams trying to manipulate the outcome of races? Have you heard about that?
Repeat the first part again. I'm sorry.
Have you noticed that over the past year or so, starting last year, NASCAR found themselves in some situations where teams have tried to manipulate their finishing order?
Well, I watched the race where I can't remember who it was that spun their car and brought out a caution, and things of that nature. But I suppose that type of stuff has been going on forever and ever.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to
I,
get your opinion on that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I had it happen to me, and I was on the wrong side of it. We never we were never fortunate enough to have multiple drivers to orchestrate any sort of outcome. But yeah, I suppose it's been going on forever and ever.
Yeah. There was Michael Waltrip's team doing it a few years back, and then Daryl did it last year.
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just a part of the sport, I guess, you know?
Yeah, it's probably not its finest moment, but, it's pretty hard to, say somebody orchestrates a spin at 130, 140 miles an hour, but, I'm sure it's not the first time that another team has stopped out on the track to bring out a yellow, or, Jimmy Spencer throwing, padding out the window or whatever. I mean, it's been going on forever. So
yeah. Did you ever race in sports cars when Dan Gurney's team, All American Racing, was competing?
I did.
Have you ever met Dan Gurney?
Many times, yeah.
What was he like?
Well, he was probably one of the cooler guys that ever walked on pit road, being California dude, and he was a great racer and a wonderful team owner, and just a guy that always had a smile, and certainly everybody wanted to feel that they knew Dan Gurney, and I had some great times. I competed in IMSA when he had Chris Cord and Dennis Ossie driving, who were two great guys, and of course he had Willie T driving, and I competed against Willie in those All-American cars. He had Juan Fangio driving those cars, and I mean, he always had great cars. He was in the great Ford versus Ferrari movie. He had my very good friend Jerry Grant as his teammate, both at the 24-hour and 12-hour and the 24-hour Le Mans. I mean, he was just an icon, that's for sure.
Yeah. Isn't Jerry Grant the guy that was penalized late in the Indy 500 in the 70s?
Yes, he was. Jerry was, later in his life, he was the director of director of PR for Champion Sparkplug. Oh. And, he was always at the track, and he was a, very good friend. And yes, he was. They had an award. There was an award at Indy 500 in those days. It was called the Jigger Soroy Award. It was awarded to the guy that had the toughest luck.
Oh, yeah. That's because of... Isn't that... isn't that because of... sorry to interrupt, but isn't that the award that was awarded because of Jigger Soroy's bad luck in the pole?
Absolutely. And Jerry won it because he came in for a splash of fuel at the end of the race and pitted in the wrong pit. He pitted in his teammate's pit and took fuel from that rig of the other rig, and that cost him.
All righty.
Yeah.
And sorry for interrupting there. I had to ask that.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me think. Did you ever meet Salt Walther?
Never did. Never did. I met his brother in hydroplane racing down in Miami, and they were certainly a star-crossed family, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I've kind of read Salt's book that he wrote before he passed away a few years back, and yeah, he never really recovered from that accident.
Nope.
Yeah. So, who do you think is the greatest motorsports team of all time?
Team, you say?
Yeah.
Well, that spans a hell of a lot of racing. I would say probably in this country, you'd have to say probably Penske.
Yeah.
And in Europe, other than they've run terrible the last couple of years, Williams has been a great team. Who knows if they'll ever get it together?
Yeah.
But I would say between those two.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you on that. And the fact that Roger Penske bought the IndyCar series, I'm really impressed.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah, and if there's any team that basically deserves to run it, it's definitely the Penske team.
Oh, absolutely.
They're the winningest team there. Yeah. So let me think. Let me think if there's anything else. Did Ron Fellows' truck and Busch wins in the 1990s play a role in you hiring him for the team at the Glen?
Uh, no, not really. Actually, that truck that he won in, that Billy Hess built that truck. Um, if my memory serves me right, I paid for that truck. So,
Oh, you did?
I believe so. I remember. I remember I had that truck built, and the whole idea was to put Ron in it. And honestly, I don't remember all the finer points, but I'm pretty sure that when he won, he thanked me. So,
Yeah,
if my memory serves me right,
yeah.
I think I bought that truck.
Yeah, not only that, but I want to say for the record, yeah, he did thank you. I've seen his video on YouTube where he won at the Glen in the 48 truck, and he was like, "Buzz, I hope you're watching."
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I did buy that. I did build that truck for him.
Yeah, and so yeah, that was kind of supplied by American Equipment then, the truck.
Yeah, well, see, back in those days, my shop was there on the BSR complex, and Billy Hess had built. He had built all of our Busch cars, and he had built all our Winston Cup cars. And he was he was a real pal, and I know we were somehow or other. I ended up having to build that truck. I don't remember how it all happened. I just remember it kind of happened.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Which year do you think NASCAR was at its pinnacle, if you had to pick one?
I would say in the early '90s when Earnhardt was doing his thing and Harry Gant was there doing his thing, and there were a lot of great drivers and Ricky Rudd and Rusty Wallace, and there were a lot of teams. A lot of teams had one car. Few teams had two cars. Technology was just starting to come in with guys understanding. You didn't have to run your set of Bilsteins every race. When different shocks were becoming a part, and guys like Terry Satchel, who was a great engineer with Chevrolet, General Motors, did a lot of engineering on cars, and teams that understood that there was a lot of mystery in those cars did very well in those early days, and I just thought that was some really great racing back in that period of time.
That's pretty cool. And if I had to pick the time that I think they were at their pinnacle, I would have to say it was the period of 1990 to 2007.
Yeah, I would agree. I liked the early '90s. I thought that was some really late '80s, early '90s. I thought that was great racing, and
yeah,
everybody had a chance,
and the Road Ringers were able to win at Sonoma and the Glen. So yeah. Yeah, and I'm kind of with you on that. I like the time when everybody had a chance to win, when the Road Ringers were dominant, and when, any team could succeed if they had the right opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you think back all the days when when Sterling Marlin and those guys and that 4 car, they had great runs at the super speedway, and there were teams that were better on the short tracks, and Childress and Earnhardt. I mean, they were one of the first teams that they grasped onto some of the technology and tried some really really unique stuff. And but all the teams had a chance. I mean, Ricky Rudd had his day. Waltrip was still there doing his thing, and I mean, there were a chance for multiple winners almost every week. And
yeah,
there was a period of time, I think Harry Gant won something like 4 or 5 straight races, and it was a good time. I thought it was great racing.
I agree with you on that. Yeah. And let me think. What's your favorite road course track that NASCAR is raced on?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think this year I believe they ran the longer course at Sonoma.
Yeah.
Pretty sure they did.
Yeah.
And with the big, I don't know what call it, the carousel, but they didn't run that goofy thing they've been running the last couple of years. I thought that was great. I thought Riverside was great. I'm not a big fan of Watkins Glen. I don't think it really challenges them. I would love to see them run the long course there sometime. That would definitely challenge them.
Yeah.
We did a bush race at the Formula One track in Mexico City. That was unbelievable.
Yeah. And Montreal.
Montreal. Mid Ohio is for the bush cars has been a pretty neat racetrack.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I don't know. I don't necessarily really have a great favorite. I would say typically though I don't think Watkins Glen is all that great of a road course for NASCAR personally.
Yeah, I think it would be if they included the boot part of it.
Yeah. Oh, and then it'd be great.
Yeah. And I've always said that if there was one race that I wish wasn't taken off the NASCAR calendar, I would have to say Mexico City and Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, because those were unpredictable.
Very.
Like,
it was a pain in the ass to go there, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Taking the trucks and going across the border, that was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I bet.
I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Especially climbing up the Mexico mountains that there are.
Yeah. I'll tell you too, when racing at Mossport, the bush cars had some great races there too. That would be a really good course for Winston Cup cars.
The Monster Energy Cup cars.
Yeah. I still call it Winston Cup.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I still call them the Sprint Cup.
Yeah.
And when PIR was changed to ISM Raceway, I always said that I'm always going to view it as PIR.
Yeah.
Because that's what I grew up with,
Yeah.
Last year I went to the Xfinity race at PIR, and I met race driver Ben Rhodes.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of had a funny memory with him because I posed for a photo with him while he was talking on the phone. It was very impromptu. And he was nice enough to smile for the camera.
Good.
Yeah. You ever heard of Ben Rhodes?
I have.
Yeah, he's a rising truck driver. Yeah. Did you ever meet PJ Jones or Parnelli Jones?
Know them both. Yep.
Yeah. What is Parnelli like?
Well, I just saw him recently actually I think he was in he might have been in that Adam Carolla movie, but he's getting up there in advanced years for sure, but
Yeah.
In his day, I mean, he was another guy like Gurney. He was pretty tough customer, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I know PJ relatively well and raced with him in the IMSA series, and they're all good guys. And last time I saw him, I did a pre-run of the Baja 1000 course with a friend of mine who's the director of SCORE, and we were at this famous place in Mexico called Mike's Sky Ranch in the middle of nowhere, and there's PJ walking around the poolside, so you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know who I'm gonna meet when I go to NASCAR races. All of them have been pretty much surprises for me. Like last year, I didn't just meet Ben Rhodes. I also met the sponsor of John Hunter Nemechek, as well as the spotter for Martin Truex Jr.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. What was your reaction when Robbie Gordon led a lap in the 96 car at Sonoma?
Well, I'll never forget, I was standing there and we were pitted next to Richard Childress, and Richard, we're standing there together, and he said to me, he says, "It's great to have somebody in the car can drive it." And I said, "You bet." And, that was another race. It was, if it woulda, coulda, shoulda. I mean, he just unfortunately broke with about 3 laps to go, but I think that was a race that he was probably going to win.
Yeah, that's just tough. Yeah. So yeah, let me think. There was another. Oh yeah, what was working with David Green like?
Well, David was, he was in the Busch Series. He was, sort of the car to beat every particular weekend. He was very technical as far as a driver, understood, what he wanted as a driver. He was a very good qualifier. In Busch, he was again the guy to beat. Winston Cup, he just really never got a chance to, let's say, find out what he could have done. He was a good qualifier, but I think in the racing that was tough time. I mean, there was a lot of guys going to the front, and if you're the rookie, you're sort of shoving out of the way, and today's rookies don't necessarily do that, but back in 1998, 97, 98, guys made room for Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace, etc. So I just don't think David had a chance to really show what he could have done as a driver, because he was a good driver.
Yeah. Is there a particular reason that he departed the 96 team, or do you prefer not to talk about that?
Well, he had struggled. He was definitely struggling at that time, and you always show that balance between keeping the team together and having everybody tugging on the same oar, or the air in favor of the driver. If the team is unhappy with what's going on in the track, somebody's going to lose. It's going to be the engine builder, going to be the chassis builder, going to be the chief engineer. It's typically not the tire changer. It's typically not the jack man. Most often it's the driver. So that was pretty much it. It was just, we really were struggling, and everybody was looking for, I don't want to say an excuse, but everybody was looking to do better.
Yeah.
And, that was just one of those cases where a decision was made, right or wrong, to change him out as a driver. And probably in hindsight, it was probably not the best thing to do. Probably the best thing to do was giving him more opportunity to, get better and feel more comfortable. But it kind of happened, and once it happened, there was no going backwards. So
yeah. So when did you start the American Equipment Company, and what do you guys actually do there?
The company was started back in the late 40s in Chicago, Illinois, and we have always been in the railroad equipment business. We sell railroad equipment, railroad machinery, equipment that maintains the track, etc., maintains the cars, rolling stock, and we do only business internationally. We don't do any business here in the U.S. All of our business is overseas.
Oh, so you're a big company.
Well, I wouldn't say big, but we do a lot of traveling, and we have offices around the world, and that's what the company's always done.
Have you ever been to England?
Many times.
That's a place I'm hoping to visit soon because last year I discovered my British ancestry.
Well, bring your raincoat.
Yeah, for sure. Because doesn't it rain a lot there?
It does. It does.
Yeah. What countries are your buildings based at in American equipment?
Say it again. Which what?
Which locations around the world is the American Equipment Company based?
Well, we have offices in Mexico, Brazil, South Africa. Where else do we have? Colombia. We had an office, which I would say we sort of have an office in Algeria, which is sort of defunct right now. But primarily those countries. That's where we have our own personnel. We use sales agents, distributors, independent distributors in other countries around the world, the Middle East, for example. We pretty much touch about every base there is in the world.
Yeah, pretty cool. That's really cool. Hoping to travel to some of those countries one of these days. It'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me think. What is IMSA racing like compared to NASCAR?
Well, hard comparison. I mean, IMSA was a combination of, back in those days, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there was a lot of gentleman racers with some professionals. Today, IMSA is almost all professionals. Probably some of the best road racers in the world are, operating in IMSA. But back in those days, you'd have guys like me, businessman, and I'd have a co-driver, Pancho Carter, or God knows who, and it was typically a businessman and a pro driver. But today, most all those teams are all very well documented pro drivers.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest difference. I mean, NASCAR didn't have any businessmen out there, with a few minor exceptions, driving NASCAR cars on a weekend. But IMSA was it was a great opportunity for guys like me and Rob Dyson and other guys like that, an opportunity to go racing.
Yeah, pretty cool. That's awesome. So what was your reaction to the open wheel split in '96?
Didn't really have one. I can't say that I was paying attention to it. I was not involved in any of that, and just really didn't pay much attention to it.
Alrighty. I see. So, did you ever meet race drivers like Dan Weldon before he passed away?
I would say with pretty much without exception, I don't really know a lot of the current, what I would call IndyCar drivers, with a few exceptions. So I really don't know that current group. I mean, Ryan Hunter-Ray I happen to know because he was a neighbor, little kid growing up in our neighborhood. So, certainly knew him. But by and large, I don't really know a lot of those current vintage IndyCar drivers.
Alrighty. Alrighty. What makes the 24 hours of Le Mans different from 24 hours of Daytona?
Well, having never done Le Mans, only seeing it now today in today's world, it's lit up pretty bright like a Christmas tree. But back in the day, my friends used to tell me it was dark times 10. And, Daytona, even in our day, was reasonably well lit. But I think, driving in the middle of a forest had to be unbelievable at night.
Yeah. That must be a little bit tough to do.
Yeah,
Yeah. Have you ever met any famous Formula One drivers?
not really.
Alrighty. And I think this will be my last one for this particular interview. Do you still
Sure.
attend any NASCAR road course races or no?
I have not been to a NASCAR race since 1998. So,
Alrighty.
I just haven't had the opportunity, and just had for no reason other than just haven't had an opportunity.
Alrighty. Well, I really appreciate you making the time for this
My
follow-up.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Yep,
Good luck in what you're doing. All right.
alrighty. Thank you very much, Buzz,
Thanks.
and good
Thanks,
luck.
Doug. See ya. Bye.
Alrighty, bye. Alrighty. Pretty cool. That turned out extremely well. I'm proud of it. Alrighty. Yeah.